to the Gaggle where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samueli, and with us, of course, is Johnny Apple and his colleague Peter Lavelle. And as Apple knows only too well, because he's been eyeing that tip jar in a very menacing way, it is now time for our weekly joint live stream, which means everybody, wherever you are in the world, some people are in South Africa, some people in Nigeria, some people are, of course, on the East Coast of the United States. Some people are really, early birds. They're on the West Coast. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, pencils down, coffee pots down, put that newspaper down. We have to focus because it is time for the live stream. So, Apple, what's new, Apple? I mean,
It's interesting. Apple. We were at the vet last week, and the veterinarian, very nice woman, she said that many people say that dogs and their owners resemble each other, and she said, and it's true. You look like Apple, not that Apple looks like me. Maybe I lost it in translation, but I took it as a compliment. Okay, we're matching. We're wearing matching coats today, as you can see.
There is something to that. I think dogs do have much more human features than cats do. Cats do not look human at all. Cats have a predatory look. They absolutely don't look human. But dogs do. They do have that. The facial expressions are actually quite close to human expressions. But in any case, the good news is that the big three, the E3, now the E3, the big three, are meeting in London, and they've all arrived on Downing Street, and they've all done the hugging. It's hilarious the way the Europeans have adopted the American practice of hugging. Actually, Trump is not a hugger, but they all do this. The British used to be kind of the handshake. They never went in for hugging.
No kissing.
No, absolutely no kissing. But now they all do this hugging thing, and so they're all there.
Group therapy.
It's it's and the plan obviously was originally, well, what are we going to do about this this pressure that we're coming under from the Trump administration to settle in Ukraine? Because the last thing we want is to settle. I mean, we'll go on saying we want peace and so on, but the last thing we want is to settle. But now they're also talking about, well, what about this this national security strategy document? We don't really like it very much, so they have to discuss that. Now, yesterday, Trump made additional comments about Ukraine and Zelensky, and so it might be just worthwhile. He didn't say very much, but worthwhile to see the tone of his remarks. And so he was at some award at the Kennedy Center, wearing a black tie and everything.
What's the next step in Russia-Ukraine talks? What's your next step in Russia-Ukraine talks after last week's negotiations?
So we've been speaking to President Putin, and we've been speaking to Ukrainian leaders, including President Zelensky. And I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that President Zelensky hasn't yet read the proposal. That was as of a few hours ago. His people love it, but he hasn't. Russia's fine with it. Russia, I guess, would rather have the whole country when you think of it. But Russia is, I believe, fine with it. But I'm not sure that Zelensky's fine with it. His people love it. But he hasn't read it. So someday you'll explain that one to me, Jeff.
I don't have an explanation, sir.
And that was it. So that was kind of a strange when he's saying that his people love it. Other than, hey, we talked to his people. I mean, they didn't say no, which is, of course, as is their word. They didn't say no. So then it becomes translated in Trump speak as his people love it. However, there's clearly a real problem here, because Trump really is now getting very tired of this, and he is applying pressure on Ukraine. And Ukraine's position is not terribly good at the moment. Leave aside, the condition of the battle, but these corruption stories are not really helping Ukraine among the circles that are actually supportive of him normally.
Yeah, I mean this more bad news coming out, and if the comment on Trump's statements, I don't even know where to begin on that. I mean, who loves it? The Russians don't love it. The Ukrainians don't love
He
it.
didn't say, well, yes,
Nobody loves this. Okay, I mean, where does this come from? Okay, no, it's very interesting. I mean, sending Kushner and Witkoff, these are private emissaries. The Russians do not treat them as someone that can hammer out a document, a treaty. I mean, these guys.
With whom can they?
I'm sorry.
Well, with whom would they then?
Well, I mean, it would have to be. Well, I think from the Russians' point of view, considering professional etiquette, then the Secretary of State would deal with the Foreign Minister of Russia. I mean, these are just conversations. They're treated very nicely. They're very polite, given an extraordinary amount of time. But we don't. There's not going to be a deal, as everyone likes to say in the West. The Russians want a treaty. They want something because the whole Minsk process. And Putin admitted he made a mistake there, believing. So no, it has to be much more concrete. No, not to end the hostilities. They still keep pushing this. We have to stop the fighting. Yeah, we'll stop the fighting when we.
But Trump isn't doing that. That's not what Trump is saying. I mean, Trump is not advocating a ceasefire. No, that's not. I don't think that's true. I mean, you got to.
I think that is true. Okay, yeah. Actually, if you look at the new national security strategy, it is looking for a cessation of hostilities. Read it. It's in black and white.
Cessation of hostilities. That's not a unilateral. I mean, that's not an unconditional ceasefire. A cessation of hostilities means the end of the war.
You can interpret that in a lot of different ways.
I don't need to interpret it.
One way you cannot interpret it is a resolution of Russia's and Europe's security problems.
I think you can see that. A cessation of hostilities. No, a cessation of hostilities. I'm sorry, but that is not an unconditional.
You want to look it up? Go ahead, type it in.
I don't need to look it up. I mean, I agree with you. That's what it says. Cessation of hostilities. It's not an unconditional ceasefire. And the Russians
want that. No, Trump just wants to get this off his plate. He doesn't want to resolve anything.
That's not true. That isn't true. No. I mean, if you look at the document is very clear that they're looking for
28 or 27 points.
Well, I think you can look at both. I think both. In both documents, it's clear that they're looking for a lasting solution to the security problems.
He wants Europe to have a lasting solution with Russia. Okay.
Right, that's a lasting solution, which means to end the war once and for all, not in order to just kick the can down the road.
Again, George, I read it again today. Okay?
No, I've read it several times.
It's not what you say it is. It says something very different. It wants an end of hostilities. Okay, it's not a resolution to security. Read it again, then you have to.
I've read it. I don't know how many times I've read it. I don't need to read it again. It says that
we interpret it differently. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, okay, all right, but let's look at it this way. I think and I think given that the document, the national security strategy, the Trump administration is looking for a stability on the European continent, which means an end to the conflict between NATO and Russia in Ukraine. That's a pretty, that's a.
I would agree. It could include that as well. Okay. No, the whole point of me bringing this up, George, is that the 27 or 28 point. It's not serious enough.
I think it's a serious document. I mean, it's a peace talks. I mean, it's not going to be resolved by. How
many times do Russians have to explain their position? How many times?
Well,
how many times?
Look,
because you agree, George, their position doesn't really change very much.
Their position doesn't change. However, they have shown a willingness. They've shown a willingness to negotiate. I mean, let's look at it this way. If let's say that Russia, if we say, okay, they've spelled out their demands, then you can say, okay, well, then the war goes on.
That's
Now,
right.
if the war goes on, that's a serious business, because then you should say, okay, the war goes on a year, 2 years, 3 years, during which time all sorts of things can happen. So that's what. So the
No
question is,
lies detected there. That's for
right,
sure.
exactly. So therefore, it's very, very dangerous, and that's why you have to then think that Russia would make some concessions just to bring this thing to an end.
I don't know. I don't see
I don't
why.
know. I mean,
No, I mean,
that's a very
considering
good
George,
question. I mean, it's a really good question. I mean,
no, I mean, considering how we started this all out, you have the E3 wetting their pants in 10 Downing Street. Okay, let's just pass the popcorn around. With this new document, George and I did an extensive review of it yesterday. This is I don't know what's the best way to phrase it. I mean, this is the kind of policy that we would like to pursue. I mean, it's not in stone, okay? I mean, you have the foreign policy blob, the establishment, you have members of the Republican Party. I mean, this is a wish list, for lack of a better term. But I mean, this is like a double whammy on Europe right now. I mean, it was bad before this was good, and now it's really bad. Okay,
well, it's really bad, and that's right. And so then, for the Europeans' point of view, is that their position is very straightforward, but which is unconditional ceasefire, and then we use the time to rearm, restore, rehabilitate Ukraine. I mean, that's it. It's very, very straightforward. Trump isn't going along with that. That is not the Trump's view, because if it were, then they would just be in agreement. Yeah, I'm down with that. I mean, that is not Trump's view. The question then is, what would give rise to a settlement? And that's a really difficult question. What would be an acceptable settlement? Now, we know Ukraine says, "Oh no, we're not going to make any concessions." That's already been flatly rejected by the Americans. Trump people said, "You're going to have to make concessions." That's already been made clear to them. So that's when Trump says, "Oh, they love it, but Zelensky hasn't read it," and so on. I mean, basically, that Ukraine saying, "Oh, we don't want to make concessions. We don't want to withdraw. We want our security guarantees." So, Trump has already told them that's not on the cards. So then the question is, which is the big question. Well, what would be the basis for a settlement?
It's not going to come from the Russian side. Why? Well, what do they have to gain from that? I mean, look. Maybe someone knows in the chat. I don't know the percentage. Okay, I don't know what the percentage of land the Ukrainians control still in the Donbass.
It's up for dispute. I mean, people dispute.
Okay,
some places 70%.
Good thing we don't have to argue about
that.
Yeah. But let me just take a number out of the air. Okay, I grabbed it. Let's say it's 8%. Just making it up, everybody. Well, eventually that 8% is going to be cleared of the Ukrainians. So now what do you do? Okay, you can't negotiate something you don't have anymore. Okay?
Right. That's of course you're right. If there's going to be this straight line to go from here to there. If, however, that may not happen, because if, however, the war goes on, and then who knows, all sorts of
Well, let me give you an example.
Just like there may be a dirty bomb incident. All sorts of things. Like a dangerous escalation.
Let me give you an example. Okay, let's say that the Donbass is completely liberated. Okay, number one. Okay, and then a reasonable voice in Kiev, or someone forcing someone in Kiev to say, "Look, can we negotiate Kherson and Zaporozhye?" My opinion is, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. Yeah, we can do that if the security guarantees are agreed to, down in black and white. Somebody signs it in authority. Can we negotiate those two regions? I think they would. Yeah, we can redraw the administrative lines. You don't need a constitutional amendment for that. Okay, so and that kind of flexibility, yes, I do. But that means that the war is over. Recognition of, this is a question I have for you. Something that's been bothering me. the Russians want the Ukrainians to recognize the Donbass is a constituent part of the Russian Federation. I don't see how. What is it if the Russians say, look, possession is 90% of the law. We got it. Okay. Now, if you don't want to recognize it, that's kind of your problem, not our problem, because it's like during the Cold War, the United States, or anything, the West in general, never really recognized the Baltic states as being part of the Soviet Union. So they lived as if it was. Okay. Now, I don't see why that can't apply here. Your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think that's yeah. No, I agree. The one question there is that to the extent of its de facto, in other words, what happens to people who live there and who have Russian passports? Would their Russian passports be recognized internationally? If say, well, you live there, and say, well, no, we don't regard you there. So it would have to be a little more than de facto.
When what we saw, and this is a very unpleasant thing to talk about, but we're not adverse to avoiding problems. Another question: a separation of populations. I mean, basically saying, if you're ethnic Russian and you're like 15 kilometers out, you better think about moving back. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many questions here. What kind of regime is going to be in Kiev? Is it going to be revisionist? Is it going to be Benderite in all of it? I mean, they still have their virulent ethno-nationalism. If you're a Russian with a Russian passport inside Ukraine, it's not a good place for you to be.
No, it's not. It's not. But the question is, would people living there? You're living in Donetsk city. You have a Russian passport. Then you travel to Italy. Would the Italian authorities then let you into the country and say, no, we don't accept you that you're a citizen of Russia? As far as you're concerned. So it may have real life consequences for people. Yes. Well, de facto is not sufficient.
Isn't it amazing, George? We watched it in real time. It was really almost seamlessly easy to build up to this conflict, okay, and to kick it off. We go from a coup, the NATOization of 8 years of Eastern Ukraine, essentially built up against the Donbass. Then we have the special military operation. And now we're going to be talking about, particularly in this stage, of how to end it. And even... George just pointed out, even let's say there's goodwill on both sides. There's a lot of things in between that need to be resolved.
Right. Well, I think that's it, and I think that de facto, I think, will not be enough. I mean, for Russia, I think you'd have to then go beyond that. You'd have to be, de jure. You'd have to simply accept that those who are living in those territories are indeed now citizens of the Russian Federation. You may not accept it that this is now part of Russia, but that's going to be the minimum. That somehow that at least the people who live there will be able to travel freely. So I think that's that's the issue. But the question then is, obviously Russia has sacrificed a great deal. And you can go on fighting, but as I think we're in agreement there. That is a very dangerous thing. That is always very, very dangerous to go on fighting. Yes, of course, Russia can defeat and would defeat Ukraine, but from here to there are all sorts of.
That's what keeps me up at night. Okay, not the final resolution, because you and I already have a pretty good idea what that's going to look like. Okay, we can bring up a lot of nuances that are going to be tricky, but in this time period, you have the E3 wetting their pants now in 10 Downing Street, and now it's going to be. Maybe we should have listened to Victoria Nuland, okay, because she liked to go out and do extreme things. Well, exactly. Okay? What do I mean by extreme, everyone? The Maidan massacre, okay, exactly. Engineered by the West, indiscriminately killing people on Maidan Square, shooting anything that moves, okay? Yep. They didn't care what political view you had, just shoot them.
Right.
This is Western foreign policy making, everyone.
Right.
Be realistic.
No, that's right. So anyway, I mean, there was Don Jr. He was in
Oh yeah, I
Doha.
saw that. I saw
Yeah,
that.
in Doha yesterday,
But
and
Tucker's there too.
yes, a lot of people were there. It's
Yeah.
interesting. It seems to be very. So was Kaya Kallas. I mean, that seemed to be a very,
Oh,
sort of very diverse guest list. Um, and as so here it is, he's saying Don Jr. criticized corruption in Ukraine and suggested Sunday that his father may walk away from the country if he doesn't make peace with Russia. Trump Jr., the eldest son of Donald Trump, was speaking at the Doha Forum, and then he stressed that Ukraine has long been hamstrung by corruption in its official ranks and argued that such graft is fueling the war in both Moscow and Kiev. Because of the war, and because he's one of the great marketers of all time, Zelensky became a borderline deity, especially to the left, where he could do no wrong and he was beyond reproach. When asked if the U.S. president could walk away from Ukraine, the younger Trump said, "I think he may." Now, I mean, it's obviously interesting, and I'm sure he's close to his father. However, he has always been the conduit to MAGA. So therefore, whatever he says, you have to
good
think,
point.
yeah, he's speaking to MAGA. That's his role in the administration, even more so than the role of J.D. Vance. So you know. You have to sort of take it with a pinch of salt when he says, "Oh, I think he just simply may walk away." But the issue still is he wants this. He wants this. Trump says clearly he wants his deal. And we talk. He has these clips saying, "Look, we know which way it's going to go. Take the deal now. You're going to spare, I don't know, tens of thousands of lives if you accept the deal." Then that's obviously Trump's thinking, but Trump can't get from here to there without applying serious pressure. And that part, he still hasn't shown that he's willing to apply pressure. Maybe he
Yeah,
has in private. Maybe he's made clear in private that he intends
yeah.
to. But so far in public, he hasn't said that.
Well, and this new security architecture strategy that he's put forth. Um, we know we don't have to really guess now what his intentions are. It's all out there. It's in those
Right.
33 pages, which George and I and so many other people notices that the wrath of the Trump people is against Europe, not against anyone, not against
Right.
Russia, not against China. It
Right.
was really it's amazing reading. So I mean, what side has to break? The Russian side's not going to break. As long as money is being sent to the Kiev regime, they're going to keep going. They'll keep sacrificing their
Right.
people.
That's
It's
yeah.
the Europeans that have to break. That's what has
That's
to
right, and this is where it becomes quite good. Very interesting because that's why they're meeting. They're meeting here to work out their next step. And so which is, first of all, you got to get the money, and the question of the money means they're applying all this pressure against Belgium because they don't really have any other source of money. I mean, the euro bond idea that they issue some new bonds, that's already been shot down by Orban, and that's not going to fly. Um, Individual countries dipping into their pockets, that isn't going to fly. I mean, the countries don't have any money, so that the money isn't there. So that's why this money in Euroclear in Belgium is such a juicy target. And so we had Merz going to have dinner with the Belgian Prime Minister De Wever, and they're applying a lot of pressure. It's an interesting question, because whether De Wever will hold firm, or is he a kind of a Viktor Orban figure? He may hold firmer than Orban. I mean, Belgium is quite a prosperous country. It's not quite as vulnerable as Hungary. Hungary is one of the poorer countries.
Yeah, but do Belgian officials want to risk going to jail? I mean,
they don't
I
want.
don't know, George.
No, that's right.
I
That's
mean,
right.
because now it's being turned into not just Euroclear, but it's a sovereign decision of the Belgian government. Now, that's aiding and abetting in my book at least. Okay, I mean, there's going to be an entity to serve. Okay,
Right.
you're
Yeah,
served.
that's right. But I mean, without necessarily thinking about jail, they are thinking about the reputation
Yeah.
of Belgium. I mean, that's a serious business because they make a lot of money. Parking your money in Belgium, that's a big source of revenue for Belgium. They can't really afford to do that, and so that's why Hungary, which often bangs its fist on the table and declares its obduracy. However, often basically goes along with the EU. But it's much easier to apply pressure against Hungary. It's a poor country. It's poorer relative to the other members of the EU. Belgium is a prosperous country. Belgium, I think, is in a stronger position to withstand pressure from von der Leyen and Merz. Well, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. But so far, De Wever is being absolutely
Well,
implacable in his opposition.
but considering so many EU institutions are in Belgium, they could start playing dirty. Like, well, we're going to have to close the EU Commission for 3 months for repairs. Okay, the roads. It's like a mayor of a city. They can really mess with you. Okay,
I think
they can do lots of like, oh, we had to redirect the electricity from your building to this place.
Right.
Yeah, we'll get
Right,
back.
right, yeah.
I wonder, that would be a hilarious skit to write out. Okay, how the mouse roared. The little country Belgium fighting the colossal called the EU. There's lots of little things you can do. I think that the reputational damage it
Yep.
just is just too overwhelming,
Yep.
and I don't know. The idea for United Europe came from a lot of Belgians, by the way,
Yeah,
everyone.
no, that's right. And
That's kind of an epicenter for it. But
right. No, that's right. And
the euro, the institutions can change in the European Union, and they certainly need change. Okay,
Right.
but the euro is something you don't want to mess with. Okay, I mean,
Right,
because
and it's clear that Belgium, what De Wever's doing is enjoys widespread support within Belgium because basically goes from right to left inside Belgium. So it's not like, oh well, the left in Belgium opposes what he's doing. So it's not. I mean, like in the case of Orban, for instance, I mean Orban pursues his policy towards the EU, but his political opponents don't support it. So it's not like it's across the board in Hungary. They all support Orban's policy vis-a-vis Brussels. No. The left don't like it at all. Belgium, it seems to be different. De Wever's position is supported pretty much across the political spectrum. That puts him in a strong position to say no to the EU. And Euroclear, the people who actually run Euroclear, have all said, yeah, this isn't going to fly. We can't just simply help ourselves to this money. And even the European Central Bank, Central says, we're not going to be the lender of last resort. Don't count on us to help you out. So, but if you want to look at something entertaining, as The Economist has the kind of one of its obsequious little profiles of the E3. I love this way it's become this E3, like the sort of the G7, the big three, as if these are
the big three,
the E3. And so here's this Economist editorial says Macron, Merz, and Starmer are forming a new trilateral leadership.
Yeah, three of the most unpopular people in office today. Wow, yeah, that's really.
Well, they say, three leaders struggling at home but vigorous abroad. Vigorous, they're vigor. And
how, by any metric, are they vigorous abroad outside of believing their own propaganda? Really, this is ridiculous.
Why are all these meetings always either in London or Paris? How come they never meet?
Maybe they're trying to get away from spouses. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. but it's funny. I don't remember there ever meeting in Berlin.
I don't know what they call it in the European Union, but a skiff. You don't have a skiff. You can go into a basement and you can, talk to these guys.
They do. Yeah,
I can appreciate security, absolutely. Okay, but why do you have to get on an airplane with the kind of technology? Look, George and I are talking to each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's right. And besides, they've had, they have these video meetings as well. I mean, it's not like they don't have them. So I don't know what's the point of it, because remember, these are all quite expensive. I mean, they're using their, governmental jets, and they always come with an entourage. It's not just it's one-on-one, so they have to come their own. They all fly and everything. So that all costs money. But I guess it's part of the E3. We are really important people. Um, and so here we have, according to The Economist, as Europeans scramble to help Volodymyr Zelensky push back on America's 28-point peace plan, the Ukrainian president's first European call was with the leaders of Britain, France, and Germany. In Johannesburg for the G20 summit, this trio, Starmer, Macron, Merz, sat down together the next day to agree on a strategy, dispatching their respective national security advisors to meet American and Ukrainian delegations in Geneva. Quietly, the trio is emerging as Europe's new top tier
Yeah,
leader.
well, where's von der Leyen? Where's Looney Tunes Kaya Kallas? It's
Right, that's right. So, and then
Well,
you go,
but it is kind of interesting is that the EU itself is shown itself to just getting ahead of the shark. I mean, this constant drumbeat to war. Kaya Kallas is really an embarrassment. Okay, I can't imagine that any of the the E3 like von der Leyen. Who could possibly like her other than her children? Okay.
no, I don't think they like von der Leyen, but it's a remarkable thing that I mean, at least whatever else you say about those three leaders, I mean, they all at least won an election. I mean, not
Yeah.
so convincing that they
That's
actually did win elections.
Yeah.
Von der Leyen didn't really win anything. Kaya Kallas didn't win anything, and yet nonetheless, she's always the ubiquitous presence. Kallas ubiquitous presence, and she purports to speak on the EU. But what's also interesting is that Maloney never gets in on this. However much Maloney has been absolutely stalwart in her support for Zelensky, doing the whole hugging Zelensky routine, she never gets in. It's like this E3, and I can see why she might be quite resentful. I mean, Italy's a big economy. It's pretty much comparable to Britain, the economies of Britain and France.
And we all know who's stewing in his juices is Sikorsky. Why isn't Poland there?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I'll tell you, the Poles. That's what they're always deemed as junior partner.
Yes, that's right.
No matter what they do, and Sikorsky tries to be magisterial and all that, but no, he's still. You go to the kids' table. We'll talk.
No, I think so, and particularly as
get yourself another dessert. Okay, just sit down.
And yeah, that's right, and particularly as they've created this Weimar grouping, which always sounds good. Oh, Weimar grouping, and
yeah, but Weimar is not a positive thing.
No, I know it just sounds nice because it's very beautiful.
Yeah, but it sounds weak to me.
It does sound weak, but but I mean, people who know German history, think, oh, well, Weimar.
Oh, it's a beautiful city. Oh, it's a gorgeous city.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
The university city is really, really nice.
No question. That's right. But so somehow Poland is in on this, and yet we have this E3, and Sikorsky doesn't get get invited, and so that's
well, considering that particularly past administrations, and it came to a pinnacle under Biden, which he was really pushing the Baltics and Poland to lead. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because even though they're allies, I'm so glad that we're not going to talk about that anymore. But they don't trust the Germans or French, and the British will just do what they're told. Okay, but the Poles and the Baltic, now they're going to get the job done. Okay,
yeah.
Is that tilt with expansion?
Well, it really started with. In the days of George W. Bush, with what's it, Rumsfeld, Donald Rumsfeld, when he talks about the new Europe and the old Europe, because back then the old Europe stuck, but it was kind of old, where they wanted to restrain America, which used to be the European posture. We kind of want to restrain the Americans. It's very different now, but sort of Chirac and Schroeder said we don't want to have anything to do with this Iraq invasion.
Freedom fries. Yeah.
Exactly, but then suddenly you had all these East Europeans, particularly Poland. Yeah, we're down. Put us down for that. And so that's when he said,
well, even Georgia. When I visited Afghanistan, I interviewed Karzai. We had to go around. Well, actually, I made a visit to the NATO base there, and I remember going through this maze of security, and they had Georgian troops doing security. I said, "What? Georgia's not a member of NATO." Oh, one day, they're volunteers. The Georgian government sent a contingent of security people, and they're showing their support for NATO. And I just thought,
that's right. But remember, in both documents, you're just going back to us, in both documents, it's made clear that America opposes further NATO expansion. That's in the 28 points and in the national strategic document said explicitly we're opposed to further NATO expansion.
Well, let's get that treaty together. Come on, let's get it down and writing, everybody. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. That's right.
George, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the 28 points and all of this. Okay, we've been over it a lot here. But my position in looking at it is that recognizing Russia's security demands is going to be first and foremost. A lot of the rest of it can be negotiated. I really believe that. Okay,
I agree.
But basically, we're just saying, there's always been this talk, and you and I have been around it, above it, around it, and everything else. The fate of NATO in all of this, it's the Ukrainian crucible and NATO. That a fundamental DNA change in Europe's security that could be the trick right there. They can make a lot of other things a lot easier. Okay,
right? No, that's right. But that's why I think that, given that Trump seems very keen on making that a part of any settlement, which is no further NATO expansion, that could be the basis. That's an important basis.
That's why I mentioned it. Exactly. Yeah. That's why I mentioned it.
That's right. Now, it's worthwhile taking a look at just for at least entertainment purposes, the European reaction to that national strategy.
I was hoping you were going to do this.
So. Yes, exactly. So
I want to start off the week in a good mood. Okay, this will do it.
So here's the European, and we have, this is Deutsche Welle. This is Germany rejects U.S. security strategies. Outside advice. We don't need no stinking outside advice.
Oh, great. Well, they're so important, aren't they? They're so important.
The U.S. strategy outlines U.S. President's America First view, signaling a shift from Washington's global role, and sharply criticizes European allies. Berlin said it doesn't need a lecture on freedom of expression. Now,
I think it does. It does. The entire Western world does, but
I absolutely agree with you. And what I think is so funny is that this is exactly what Germany does all the time. Germany spends all of its time lecturing. How many times have you lectured Georgia? Over the past couple of years, been lecturing Georgia, you're lecturing Serbia, lecturing Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's consistent. And of course, lecturing Russia, but they're always lecturing. Suddenly, we're not going to be subjected to lectures.
Well,
it's not nice when you're being lectured to.
I think Germany lost that privilege, and it won't regain it for a very long time. Sorry, I do believe that. Okay, it should be an example of other things like restraint, diplomacy,
right?
Speaking quietly. Right. Being an intermediary, that would be a more proper role.
Well, that's right, and that's kind of the way we thought of Germany. Always through at least from the 1970s, it used to be quite belligerent in the 1950s when it sort of demanded reunification, even though there was no chance of getting it, but it kept demanding.
Yeah, but that was for Germany.
For Germany, but
the West or anything.
That's right, but it was made clear. Once I think the Kennedy administration made clear to Germany that we're not going to deliver reunification for you. We don't have the wherewithal to do it. We're not going to go to war with Russia to deliver reunification, particularly after the building of the Berlin Wall, which I think was the defining event, which I think shaped the Ostpolitik. Once that Berlin Wall was built.
Well, actually, the building of I'm going to get lots of arrows in my direction, but you know what? It pretty much shut down the Cold War in Europe with the Berlin Wall.
I think
Actually took the heat out of the whole.
It took the heat out, but Willy Brandt, who was the mayor of West Berlin at the time, I mean, for him, I think that was the moment who says, well, look, it's clear that the United States is not going to deliver reunification for us. The path toward some kind of reunification lies through Moscow. I mean, relying on the United States, when Kennedy basically said, look, we're not going to go to war on your behalf. So that was made clear.
Well, George, having said that, and I think it's an important observation, we have to get to a point, and I know this is going to shock a lot of people, but to get security in Europe, going to have to go through Russia.
No, I agree. I agree. So here then is this is the German. We want no lectures. So German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul has pushed back against elements of the new U.S. national security strategy put forward by the White House. Wadephul said Berlin did not need external lectures on freedom of expression or the organization of democratic societies. Speaking in Berlin alongside Icelandic Foreign Minister Thorgerdur.
Just say the foreign minister from Iceland.
Okay. I think all right. Let's leave that.
Remember the volcano that burst a few years ago? Nobody could say it. They called it the Icelandic volcano because it was like 30 letters long. Okay,
that's right, exactly. Wadephul said such matters are governed by Germany's constitutional order, citing the separation of powers and press freedom.
But we will lecture everyone else that we feel deserves the lecture. Great.
That's right. Wadephul said the United States was and will remain our most important ally in the NATO alliance. This alliance, however, is focused on addressing security policy issues. Now, the problem with saying that is that that's not what you usually say, because
no, it's democratic values.
It's values. It's about values. This isn't about security.
Well, it got through his thick skull, apparently. Yeah, let's talk about security, which has been long forgotten.
But the fact is, obviously, NATO hasn't been about that. NATO is continually interfering in every other country's affairs and does it. We're giving you lectures about values, because it's about values and democracy and freedom. And suddenly, they're saying, well, democracy is not in great shape in Europe. I mean, hey, some people are now starting to notice. They thought that no one would notice. That you're putting people in prison for things that they say. I mean, which is what the kind of the measure of freedom of expression. You're putting people in prison for what they believe. You're talking about outlawing parties. You're talking about that. I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but you're discussing this, and there are members of the Social Democratic Party who advocate banning outright the most popular party in Germany. That's serious business, and
the German media itself reports on the Germany's surveillance state. Okay,
right. Yeah,
people are beginning to notice. Yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly. So that's what irks them. That's what irks them. That suddenly, hey, this is kind of seeping through in the United States. So that's Wadephul. And then he says here, the minister said questions of freedom of expression or the organization of free societies was not part of the alliance's remit when it came to Germany. Oh, but it is in the alliance's remit when it comes to everybody else. It's just you don't like it when it comes to Germany. We see ourselves as being able to discuss and debate these matters entirely on our own in the future, and do not need outside advice.
Well, good. Then we can look forward to not wasting time in Washington again. Thank you.
Exactly. And then Jürgen Hart, this is the foreign policy spokesman of Germany's ruling conservative, the CDU-CSU alliance, was also critical of the U.S. strategy. The assessment of the U.S. president on Europe, it's very much single-colored. maybe due to information he got from the wrong sides, like right-wing radical parties in Europe, or sometimes it sounds like Russian President Vladimir Putin talking about Europe.
Got to
Putin.
play that card. Just he carries that
Exactly.
in
You
his
gotta,
breast. He
absolutely.
carries
You
that
gotta,
card in his breast pocket at 24/7 just to play it. Yeah.
exactly. Putin. And then the conservative politician also criticized the strategy for encouraging the rise of nationalist parties in Europe. We don't need Trojan horses of Russia or China in German or European politics, as it is from the AFD or the Rassemblement National in France, or also from the right radical parties in the
Yeah,
UK.
but George, during the 2020 election, the Europeans picked a side in the United
They
States quite
absolutely, they
clearly.
absolutely picked a side. I mean, they made clear they wanted Biden, and then they wanted Kamala Harris. Absolutely
They
made it clear.
cannot see their hypocrisy.
Exactly. But it's also interesting when he calls them Trojan horses of how to put it, Kremlin and China. Now these are parties that enjoy votes. This isn't some fringe group that gets half a dozen votes in an election. The AFD is the most popular party in Germany. The National Rally, most popular party in France. Reform UK, most popular party in the UK. That's three parties that he's dismissing as Trojan horses. They're the ones. They're the most popular. If you want to show contempt for democracy, you're showing it very clearly.
One could make the argument, and I certainly would, and I think you would agree with me, that the ruling elites in Europe are the Trojan horse for an ideology that is very alien to the people they rule over.
Right, exactly, and I think that was a very important part of that document, saying, hey, they have no legitimacy whatsoever. They're pursuing policies that clearly don't have popular support, and yet they're determined to go ahead with this. Anyway, so that was the German politicians, and then we have the European Commission strongly rejected the accusations against the EU that the US strategy made. Commission chief spokeswoman Paolo Pino rejected allusions that the EU undermines political freedom and sovereignty, damages the continent with its migration policy, and hinders freedom of expression, according to the German DPA. And then we have the EU's Costa. He somehow always kind of lacks the glamour of Ursula von der Leyen, even though he's theoretically senior to her. He's the president of the European Council, but somehow we don't hear much about him.
Yeah, well, that he probably sees von der Leyen's riding crop. We don't see it too often.
But remember the guy who was his predecessor, Charles Michel, and then when they were meeting with Erdogan, he took the chair because he said, I have seniority, so I take the chair. And she, though she's a woman, a petite woman, she has to stand because she's junior. So they know the pecking order. President of the EU Council, that's more important than president of the EU Commission.
What do you think? What's in play here? That she's a better soft power look for the EU, a woman, nicely
Yeah.
coiffed.
Yeah.
You think
Yeah.
that's the play
Yeah,
here?
yeah, I think so.
She's so obnoxious. Okay.
Yeah. Also, she's a German, and so
Yeah.
if you're from Germany rather than say from Portugal, you're taken more seriously because she's taken to be a representative of Germany, and that's the major power in Europe. And Michel, I think he was from Belgium. I think he was
Yes.
either Belgium or Belgium. Yeah. So it's always well, who's going to be more important? Well, obviously the representative of Germany, even though he always said, hey, I deserve the chair. Give me the chair. Erdogan was very smart. He just put one chair. He has two chairs at one chair.
We did a podcast on bring your own. I love that.
So you have two guests. Instead of bringing 2 cups of coffee, you only bring 1 cup of coffee. Here's the this is the Costa. So he's Portugal, and they said that he has voiced concern that the change in Washington's security policy has been hailed by Russia. European Council President Antonio Costa said on Monday that a new national security strategy put forward by the Trump administration contains unacceptable threats to meddle in Europe's internal political affairs.
Oh, well, you don't like it when it happens to you.
Exactly. Oh, internal political affairs. Absolute horrific.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I mean, when you think of how many times, I mean, remember, they not just in Georgia. Remember, they used to do that all the time in Ukraine before Maidan. I mean, remember all the lectures they used to give to Yanukovych, what he's supposed to do now, what's supposed to, who can be in prison, who can't be in prison. This is a regular thing, always lecturing. But that was then. It was, that's part of the continental values, the transatlantic community.
Yeah. At the same time, Julian Assange was rotting in a prison.
Exactly. The United States cannot replace European citizens in choosing which parties are good and which are bad.
Well, the Europeans thought they could do that in America.
Yeah, they did. They did. Costa also criticized the passages of the strategy paper that seem to condemn recent attempts by the EU to bring US tech giants to account for the propagation of disinformation and hate speech online. And then he goes on, the United States cannot replace Europe in what its vision is of freedom of expression. There cannot be freedom of speech without freedom of information. He said, there would be no freedom of speech if citizens' freedom of information is sacrificed to defend the techno oligarchs in the United States. Now, this is how they're very cute, thinking that they somehow, this is, we're trying to get to the oligarchs, and this, that's, which sounds good. Oh yeah, let's hit the oligarchs, the billionaire oligarchs. But the problem is, in this case, I'm no fan of the billionaire oligarchs, but at least they're providing a platform, particularly Musk, a platform for people to express their views. You, however, the bureaucrats, you're trying to suppress, but they're trying to, they clothe all this in this mumbo jumbo. Well,
they just want, they want to regulate other people's platforms.
Right.
So they want to do.
That's exactly that's exactly it. That's right. And and then we have Costa. I think he feels that he's not being heard, so he sent out this tweet today. What I see is there are so many people trying to undermine Europe. Why? They're trying to undermine Europe. Why? Because the EU is strong. Strong.
What?
And we are working to make it even stronger.
Yeah, that's what people are really worried about.
Yeah, we have taken.
Yeah, because it works for him.
Yes,
okay,
that's a good job. Yeah, we have taken bold steps to build the Europe of defense and enhance our strategic autonomy. We have stood by Ukraine's side as its first and most steadfast supporter since the start of the war. We have developed and strengthened our network of world partners based on fair trade, shared prosperity, and defense of the rules-based international.
They're just doubling down. They're willing to die on the hill called Ukraine. I mean,
that's right.
Wake up.
That's right. That's yeah. Yeah, that's exactly that.
Well, particularly since the Russians, and take it for what it's worth, genuinely want this conflict resolved. It looks like the American administration wants it resolved. Public opinion polls, we'll take them at face value, and Ukraine definitely wants this to come to an end. So who's the problem here?
Right. That's right. That's right. Well, that's it. I mean, the whole meeting today, what are they meeting about? What's the meeting about is how do we thwart the Americans? How do we thwart the American peace plans? But anyway, I mean, speaking of freedom of expression, as we've mentioned now before, this is they hit Elon Musk's X with a whopping great fine. I mean, it's a large sum of money. Obviously, it's pocket change for Musk, but nonetheless, it's obviously the first of it's basically it's part of war. They've declared war on
Once
Musk.
the administrative state gets in your wallet, it never leaves.
That's right. Exactly. And that's it. So this 120 million euros, this is what they, and remember what they've done here. This is always the first step. They didn't say, oh, it's about the views, which is what they don't like. The fact that there's people are able to express views that the EU finds repugnant. They thought, oh, the blue check marks. We don't like this policy of the blue check marks. I mean, what the hell has it got to do with them?
Do you know
On
what
the
that
blue check
issue? I read that today. I didn't understand why it's an issue for them. Do you understand why?
No, no, it's not. I mean, they say, "Oh, well, the blue check marks. Oh, that means we don't know whether that's the genuine article or not." I mean, I
You
guess
can
I
put
could
you
start
can,
at von der Leyen, and I could say, "I'm going to pay the money, whatever." But
yeah, well, that's a service that they provide. You can buy a blue check
you can
mark.
buy
What's
it
wrong with
exactly. I mean, you
well,
pay what
yeah, but I
$8
mean,
monthly, and that's it. And
what's
then you get
what's
the blue check mark.
it's a business.
Exactly. That's
If
right.
people want to buy it, fine.
That's it. That's exactly. It's the
Well,
way
do you
that.
think anybody really cares, George?
No,
I don't care.
no, they don't, and that's the point. Obviously, this isn't the issue. You don't hit somebody with $120 million euro fine because you don't like its policy on blue check marks. And so, really, what it is about is the fact that he's allowing views that they find abhorrent. And so that this is what they talk here. Oh, the blue check mark, deceives users. It doesn't deceive users. Everybody knows that anyone can get a blue check mark as long as you pay $100 a year, and that's it. That's so it doesn't deceive. Nobody thinks, oh, this is obviously when he says President Trump. Oh, this obviously must be President Trump. Everyone knows. Oh, okay, it's some guy who's willing to throw away $100 a year and claim to be President Trump. And then you have the XX ads repository, and then failure to provide researchers access to public data. Well, that seems to be very reasonable. You don't want Ursula von der Leyen getting her hands on this data. Because we know what they want to use all this information, people's personal information for. For X's terms of service prohibit eligible researchers from independently accessing its public data, including through scraping.
Okay. Well, I think it could be easily solved, and George and I have mentioned this in the past. Where is the Europe's Twitter? Why doesn't Europe have one? Why?
Then none of the big.
Where is Europe's Google?
Exactly.
Where is Europe's Apple?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Are there reasons why they don't have these mega corporations? Is it a European problem? Is it part of their DNA that doesn't produce that thing? I mean, if you don't like Twitter, why don't you make your own?
Exactly. Your own Facebook.
Make your Facebook and other. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
You could call it, like Euro shit. Okay. I'm sure most people in Europe would sign up. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, that's right. But just through, and here's X-Axis. This is Musk retaliated the European Commission's ad account, and the European Commission has lost access to its control panel for buying and tracking ads on Elon Musk's X. And then your ad account has been terminated. Product wrote on the early Sunday. Your ad account has been terminated.
Oh, good one. Really?
I think so. Beer accused the EU executive of trying to amplify its own social media post about the fine on X by trying to take an advantage of an exploit in our ad composer to post a link that deceives users into thinking it's a video and to artificially increase its reach. So it says you're violating our rules, our terms of service. Your ad account is cancelled. And then let's just a few golden oldies here about what the EU really is after. The EU warns Elon Musk ahead of Trump interview. So this goes back to last year, to keep hate speech off X. The European Commission warned X Corp owner Elon Musk and CEO Linda Yaccarino that the company may face penalties and restrictions in Europe if it doesn't address the spread of illegal content, including incitements to violence and hate speech on its social media platform. This is what they do. They always say this is illegal content, incitement to violence, whatever whatever the hell that means. Incitement to violence. You can call it.
I would say European Union structures are fundamentally undemocratic. Now, is that an illegal statement?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Well, I don't know what law school you went to.
That's it's illegal content. I don't know what law school. It's a very good question. What? I mean, these European law schools, they kind of create these notions of illegal content. So when they say illegal content, you think, oh, well, obviously with child porn. Oh, yeah, child porn.
Yeah, right.
And then, doxing. Well, that's illegal content. You're not allowed. That's already. X does not allow child porn, and it doesn't allow doxing.
And that is applying to a minuscule number of users. Okay,
right.
I really hate when they want us to rally around something that has like 98% support anyway.
Well,
okay,
exactly. I mean, the things are already illegal, and so whenever Musk, whenever they say this, well, you're allowing illegal content, and Musk says, well, what illegal content is it? They never specify. They've never said, well, here's an example of illegal content. But by using that word illegal content, it suggests, oh, well, they're just trying to stop child porn. I mean, they did the same thing with Pavel Durov on Telegram, as if there's this enormous amount of child porn on Telegram. Of course, there isn't any. But that's how they get away with this, because the public really, I don't know, oh, that sounds cool. Ursula von der Leyen, she just wants to get rid of child porn. Anyway, this is the illegal content. And then here's Thierry Breton. He was the European Commissioner at the time. I am writing to you in the context of recent events in the United Kingdom and in relation to the planned broadcast on your platform X of a live conversation between a US presidential candidate and yourself, which will also be accessible to users in the EU. And then it says, we are monitoring the potential risks in the EU associated with the dissemination of content that may incite violence. Remember, Musk was going to interview the Republican nominee for president, which is kind of what a news organization is supposed to do. You're supposed to interview, the leading political contender for the presidency. And he's talking about, we're worried about the dissemination of content that may incite violence, hate, and racism.
Why are they worried about that? George and I just played a clip of Donald Trump. It was kind of, in my opinion, a bit Looney Tune, but it's not illegal.
Right.
It's not illegal.
But you see, this is how they get away with saying things are illegal, because incite violence and hate and racism, well, anything, you can deem anything you like as an incitement of violence, hate, and racism. Anything. I mean, because any views that you don't like, they can say, oh, you're inciting hate. Oh, you're inciting racism. That's what they want to censor. So they've chosen this issue of these blue check marks that nobody gives a damn about, in order to get at what they're really after, which is to get X out of the EU market altogether.
Exactly.
And this is the start of that process. I therefore urge you promptly ensure the effectiveness of your system and to report measures taken to my team. Report out to me after class.
What does that mean?
It's a bureaucrat threatening that if you don't report to me, we're going to just simply ban you in the EU market. It's an amazing thing. Is like you can have these unelected bureaucrats just simply say, we're going to ban you. We're going to ban you in the EU market. I have such power. elected politicians don't have
Yeah,
that.
but he got blowback for that. I remember we did the podcast on this. He got blowback for that.
He
He
did get
kind of stepped
blowback.
back a
Yeah,
little
he
bit
did. But
because everyone was saying, what are you, the czar of knowledge, or I mean, did
yeah, yeah,
God,
yeah.
touch you or something? He got a lot of blowback for
He
it. I
did get,
remember.
but the
It
thing
doesn't
about
change their policy. Okay.
exactly the point about this, yes, of course there is blowback because there are always people who just push things a little bit further. But von der Leyen goes along with all of this. I mean, it's not like, well, under me, the EU Commission, we're definitely not going down that path. No, she's absolutely down with that. And here's so that's Breton, and then and this is that's it. And then again, Breton gives Elon Musk 24-hour ultimatum to deal with Israel Hamas misinformation on X. Just going to remember how suddenly they got this a, struggling with a flood of posts sharing graphic media, violent speech, and hateful conduct about the Israel Hamas war.
Yeah, what was done to the Palestinians is really hateful. Okay,
That's
yeah.
And but it has received a broadside of criticism, including from the top EU official. And then, Breton, the EU's digital rights chief, also warned Musk in a letter which was posted on X that authorities have been flagging potentially illegal content that could violate EU laws, and you must be timely, diligent, and objective in removing it and warranted. So they just simply make it up. What is illegal about any of the images? I mean,
Well, you know what they want, George? They want they want keys to the back door, and they just want to watch it.
exactly.
We'll flag it for you. Yeah, that's what
Right.
they want. Okay.
Of course,
Wait, or barring that, they just want him to leave Europe.
That's right. That's right. And then you remember EU's Vera Jourova. This is the time of the Wild West is over. She's one of these. She's the European Commission's vice president for values and transparency.
Oh God, God! This her middle name. Her middle name is Karen. Yeah.
Exactly. When transparency is obviously the very opposite of what you're after. And so she's speaking with Euronews at the World Economic Forum in Davos on Wednesday. Jourova said the platform would face sanctions if it didn't comply with new EU online regulations. Asked if the bloc had enough clout to make big platforms like Twitter comply with the new laws which aim to create a safer digital spaces, she said there was nothing stronger than legislation in force. We will have the Digital Services Act. We will have the Code of Practice as part of this legislation. So, and then, we cannot accept illegal content. And, that's just, but which they define, they define this. And here's Ursula von der Leyen, because she doesn't really want to be left out of this. So she says this speech in Davos, and she said that that somehow that for the global business community, the top concern for the next 2 years is not conflict or climate; it is disinformation and misinformation.
Yeah, because you've lost control of the narrative. Yes.
That's right. We have, and let's just say we have.
Do presidents of the EU Commission, do they have presidential libraries in Europe? I bet you she will.
Yes,
and the taxpayers will pay for it.
That's right. Yeah, I'm sure. And then when she talks here that with our Digital Services Act, we define the responsibility of large internet platforms on the content they promote and propagate.
Yeah, but it's users on platforms that promote and propagate. It's not the platform. Certainly Musk has his issues. Okay, I mean, it's very difficult to. I mean, it's his after all. But for the most part, it's like 99.9%. It's users doing that. It's not platforms doing it.
Right. That's right. That's right. Anyway, let's take a look at our locals board. Where our.
Well, I got a question because
yes.
I saw it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, yep. George.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of our conversations, and we do this a lot,
Mhm.
Do I speak more than you? Do you speak more than me? Or is it basically 50-50?
I
How do
don't.
you feel?
It's hard, it's up to others really to decide. So it's like you can't really tell yourself.
Well, I
Uh,
think it's like 50-50.
maybe that maybe why people say that it's not 50-50?
Yeah, it looks like I'm a bully. I'm bullying George. That's hardly the case. Okay. Yes, George is the victim on the
The
game.
victim. I'm the victim. Yes, yes. Well, I like that. I like this.
Oh,
Somebody.
victimhood is people play that card all the time. Okay.
Anyway, Cynthia, a good friend Cynthia, always very generous, always very thoughtful, and so Cynthia says Trump said he intends to use the frozen Russian assets for a U.S. controlled Ukraine reconstruction fund that would generate profits for the U.S. The EU, on the other hand, intends to use the assets to finance the war for 2 more years. But since the EU is exclusively funding the war by purchasing all it needs to do so from the US, isn't the war merely a profit generating scheme for the US carried out entirely at Europe's expense? So why doesn't the EU cease funding the war before it bankrupts itself? Well, the Macron for one says, "Oh no, this money has to be spent in Europe." Now the others, the Germans say, "Well, spend it wherever, just so long as we can get some arms to Ukraine." So that's just a Macron's view, is that the money should be planted into the European defense industry. But Merz, he's happy to just if you want to give it to the Americans, give it to the Americans. But it is not, yeah. I mean, theoretically, if the war goes on, the industries, American industries, would profit. But I'm definitely not at all sure that that's what Trump wants to
Well,
do.
I think that we need to think outside the box here, because when people get desperate, they do desperate things. I stay away from predictions, but I would wager that the frozen assets will be frozen for a very, very long time. Okay, because the 28 points is not good. That's the beginning of a conversation. It's not the end of the conversation. And the Russians are never going to say, "Oh yeah, we'll let you spend that money." They're never. I mean, the public opinion would be just outraged by that. I mean, that just won't work here. Okay, particularly, the one of the consequences of this conflict, everyone, is that there's inflation in Russia and people are angry about it. All right, let's not make any bones about it. Okay, if I feel it, oh my God, what other people must feel. Okay, so giving that away, no, I think that whatever happens, I think it will be slow. I don't think it's going to be. There's a cutting off point. I think it's going to be something that is very gradual, and those assets are going to stay there for a very long time, as a hostage, as it were, and they'll keep taking the percentage of the profits that it
Well,
generates.
that's it. They're already doing that. The percentage
That
of the
kind
profit.
of, that's not you don't get everything you want, but but for the next 10 years, we can keep
That's slicing
taking
it up.
off
But the problem is that
that,
they already made that decision in
yeah.
2024 to hand over the windfall profits to Ukraine. The problem was that the sums involved were just not that great. I mean, 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion. It's just not a huge sum. So that's why they want to get their hands on this money.
Principle.
I tend to agree with you that it's going to be there. At the moment it does seem unlikely that Belgium will be moved. I mean, they've got this big meeting coming up. I think it's either the 16th or the 18th, where they're going to really apply the pressure on Belgium. It doesn't look as if that's going to work, but who knows? There might be. They might have tools. If he has the tools, there may be tools that
Well,
they
I
can.
came across a
Belgium.
press release that they found some kind of clause or something like that. I didn't really. I'm kind of really tired of the story, to be honest with you. But never underestimate the amount of deceit these people will.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree, but I also agree with you that that plan within the 28 points. Let's say that it stays intact and is not, and they don't help themselves do it. I do think it's unlikely Russia would agree. I mean, maybe they will agree for some kind of reconstruction. I mean, there might be part of an agreement that there would be a reconstruction for everything in Ukraine. In other words,
there you go. There you go. I agree. Okay. Repairing the Donbass as well.
Right. That's right. Exactly. So it would be distributed.
So, I mean, a pan-Ukrainian, with other funds and stuff like that. That's a flag that might salute, because as we pointed out many times, the Russians don't see Ukrainians as a hostile people.
No,
they just don't. Okay, right. And after this tragic war that never should have happened, we need our neighbors, our Pravoslavny, our Orthodox neighbors, that can float. That could go somewhere, okay, but not under American control.
No, it ain't American. No, because I mean, it's hard to see why should America make money of Russian money? I mean, this is Russia's money, and it's not when we say Russia's money, this is Russian taxpayers' money. I mean, it's not like it's Putin's money. I know the way the media presented Putin. No, I mean it's Russian taxpayers' money. So they say, yeah, that's our money. That's lying around, and it's our money that they plan to get their hands.
See, but this is another example here where again, separating logic, common sense, and hope is very difficult sometimes. But this is the kind of negotiation, if finessed the right way and not using a megaphone, issues like this you can massage and you can get somewhere. Okay. This again, my position is Russia's security interest. They will stick to the maximalists. They absolutely will not budge on those. But there's a lot of those other points. George and I did a couple of podcasts. Well, it's kind of an interesting idea. Well, I don't know if it's going to work, but okay. Right. But, this will be part of a process of building trust again, and that might be part of this.
Right. I agree. And it simply goes on. However, Euroclear has made it perfectly clear that liquidating these frozen assets would cause massive investor flight. Yeah, that's what it said, especially from Asia and the Middle East, leading to its bankruptcy and systemic risk in Europe. And if Trump forces a similar asset transfer to a U.S. entity, it would pose the same systemic risk to the U.S. So why would Trump want to bankrupt the U.S. as he ostensibly aims to bankrupt the EU? Well, I don't think he does. I really don't think that's what Trump wants to do. I mean, they put this out there. Oh, yeah, we're going to, make some money, but they're not going to make any money on this. I mean, there's no way they can get their hands on. They don't have the mechanism to get their hands on this money. But you'd have to say, though, that the way Trump is formulating it is, it was Biden who pursued, I think, a very cynical policy as far as Europe is concerned. I mean, Biden was kind of pushing the Europeans into this war. Biden was the one who kind of, hey, you're going to make us, the Europeans, dependent on American energy. I mean, Trump hasn't done that. I mean, Trump wants to end the war. I mean, I think, whether he does or not is but nonetheless, he has actually made a policy unlike Biden. I mean, Biden explicitly wanted to keep the war going. Never made any attempt to end it, but Trump has made some attempts. So it's actually helping Europe. It's saving Europe from itself, unlike Biden, I think, whose policy was really very cynical, making Europeans totally dependent on the Americans, even as the war was taking place on the European continent. I really don't think Americans are actually going to make money out of this. I mean, it's like, it's just it's not in America's interest. I think it's redefined it for this war to continue, and that's obvious. Obviously, it isn't in America's interest for this war to continue. Anyway, so that was what was it? Yeah, I had it a moment ago, and So then we have Steve K9. Always good to see you. He says, "Sing Putin did it to the melody, to the melody from the pop song Rumor Has It." Okay, I don't know.
I'm trying to conjure it up. I can't.
No, I can't. I don't know that rumor has it. Putin did it. Well, it is true that that is very much the motif, the theme of the Europeans, which is this the Putin did it, and constantly trying to provoke a conflict of Europe by saying, "Oh well, Putin did it." So um, anyway, the one
Well, I mean, it's kind of a joke here. I mean, Putin did it. Well, if he did it, why can't he fix the pothole in the road in front of my building? If he can do everything, why can't he do that? I
well,
mean,
that's
it
a,
just kind of caves in on it. So people
that's
just like, whatever. Okay.
that's right. But we started today talking about why I think Ukraine is having problems. Is that if it were just a matter of Trump? Oh well, Trump, then we know what a horrible person Trump is, and good old Ukraine, heroic and so on. But when you have liberal publications such as the New York Times turning against Zelensky, then you have a problem because now you don't really have a constituency any longer, and that I think is, and so the New York Times published a very long article. Definitely don't need to go through that, but a long article about
Oh,
corruption.
thank you, George.
No,
Okay.
no, 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 no. We're merciful.
Don't bully me. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yes. So here's the New York Times. Zelensky's government sabotaged oversight,
Yeah.
allowing corruption to fester. What a shock. That's a kind of a shock.
Well, George,
Story.
it's so frustrating. You see the New York Times, right? This, why didn't they ask me, send me an email and say, Peter, can you tell us about corruption in Ukraine? So, oh, let's, well, we could have a very long conversation. But it's like suddenly, oh my goodness, there's corruption in Ukraine.
Yeah.
That's what's really frustrating sometimes.
No, exactly. It's not news until the New York Times acknowledges it's news. But the New York Times is always very late. It's whatever the story, the New York Times is 2-3 years late to the party. So here is Ukrainian leaders blame independent advisors for failing to prevent graft. A Times investigation found that President Zelensky's own administration removed guardrails. I would never have believed that. Its own administration removed the guardrails.
Ukrainian leaders blame independent advisors for failing to prevent that doesn't even make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
No, because it's the Ukrainian leaders that want to suppress this. Okay.
Right.
Oh, you didn't bring it to my attention. You didn't tell me. No, you were trying to shut down these agencies because they were going to tell the world. It's just,
That's right.
it's just mind-boggling for me.
That's right. So it says to protect their money, the United States and European nations insisted on oversight. No, they didn't. We know that if they wanted to insist on oversight, they could have insisted on oversight. It's nonsensical. If you're starting a business and your business depends on a grant from the government, do you know how many documents you have to sign, how much paperwork you have to do, and they just for $5,000. Let's say you're getting a government grant for $5,000. You have to go through endless documentation.
I was an academic, to get $1,000. Oh my God! It was like getting a loan from the World Bank.
That's right. That's right. So they know how to put in oversight, and if something is wrong, you haven't dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. Boom! Not only do you not get your money, they're going to bring charges against you. They're going to absolutely go after you and say, "Give us all the money back and with interest." And if you don't, then they will get into your bank account or even prosecute you. So that was, we just, they insist on an oversight, but for some reason it didn't happen. They required Ukraine to allow groups of outside experts, known as supervisory boards, to monitor spending, appoint executives, and prevent corruption. And what happened to those supervisory boards? Over the past 4 years, a New York Times investigation found the Ukrainian government systematically sabotaged that oversight. allowing graft to flourish. President Zelensky's administration has stacked boards with loyalists, left seats empty, or stalled them from being set up at all. Leaders in Kiev even rewrote company charters to limit oversight, keeping the government in control and allowing hundreds of millions of dollars to be spent without outsiders poking around. And then Mr. Zelensky's administration has blamed Energoatom's supervisory board for failing to stop the corruption, but it was Mr. Zelensky's government itself that neutered Energoatom's supervisory board.
Wow, wow, so many Putin talking points. Wow, amazing.
That's right. It's exactly, so many Putin talking points. And I'm sure, when Radek Sikorsky reads an article like that, he's saying, well, so clearly now the New York Times,
now they're
repeating Putin's talking points.
That's right. Somebody's being paid. Yeah, right.
But it is interesting, and what's the reason for this sudden flurry of stories about?
The New York Times has this habit. George and I have chronicled it over so many different issues. They sometimes if they think they've read the room, they're always late, always really late. But they want to write the first edition. They want to write the first draft of how it all ended. They're not throwing in. They're not abandoning this project. No. But they want to balance their risk. They're balancing the risk, because if it goes in a certain direction, they're ready. It goes in the other direction. Well, say we wrote this article. It was late in December in 2025. We foresaw it. They always do this. Okay.
I agree. That's classic New York Times. They always hedge their bets.
That's what I wanted to say.
Hedge their bets. In other words, they say sort of, if whichever way it goes, they say, well, we ran an article on this. You say, yeah, but you wrote so many articles in the other direction. Yeah, nonetheless, we did write this. And they do that. Whatever the issue, like even, when you go back to the wars in Yugoslavia, and, they obviously were very intensely hostile to the Serbs, you will always find a couple of articles which was quite balanced, and to, the Serbs have real problems that they have to address. So they always make sure that they're covered.
Look at the pages of the New York Times a few weeks before the collapse in Kabul. Oh, President Ghani, he's got it. He's got a new modern military, completely fit out by the Americans, And then, it's like, oh my goodness, the Taliban is like taking over every single province. Well, we saw this coming. There was a lack of legitimacy. It's amazing. In the course of 6 weeks, you have totally two different points of view.
That's right. No, I think that's right. So they're then covered, so that if it goes south, and suddenly Zelensky's no more, and they say, well, yeah, I mean, we did cover. We had this long investigative article about corruption in Ukraine and the lack of oversight, even though you spent all this time, saying that the story of corruption is just simply a Putin talking point. This is something the Russians are just putting out. This is Russian propaganda. But now they say, well, yeah, we ran the article. But I think it is, though, interesting. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to present a kind of a positive view of Zelensky. I mean, yeah, he's being hugged by, kissed by, Macron, Merz, and the rest. But generally, he has lost the allure that he once had.
It's the clip that you had at the Kennedy Center Awards. He said something, and again, it's Trump, so it's hard to parse. But didn't you find it interesting? He said, we've been talking to European leaders. Mm-hmm. And then he said, we've been talking with President Zelensky. I thought it was interesting. Who else are you talking to in Kiev? Well, who are your power brokers now? And are you grooming someone? Somebody caught your eye? I just thought it was interesting to say, Ukrainian leaders. Why would you say that?
Well, I may be just referring to the people who came to talk to Witkoff and Jared in Miami. I mean, this has been going on for 3 days. These discussions, which had just concluded, and and then Trump said, "Oh, they really loved it." I was thinking, oh, I love it. I love this. This is my dream. but by doing it in this way, he just wanted to say something negative about Zelensky. Oh, they loved it, but Zelensky hasn't even bothered to read it. I mean, I don't know why he said that, but other than it shows yet again kind of his negative view. I mean, he really does not like Zelensky. I mean, that's a consistent theme of his. He doesn't like Zelensky.
Look, we all know that when Trump is the room, he consumes all of the oxygen, and he does not like it when someone steps on his toes. It is something as simple as that.
I don't know. I think it's
He
much.
came into the Oval Office and he tried to steer the conversation. You don't do that with Trump in his own office.
You don't do that, true. But I do think it's more than that. He thinks this is just a
Oh
single.
no, I think that's an additional thing.
Right,
No,
but I
it's not
do
totally
think that but look, he thinks Ukraine is a sinkhole. I mean, that's you basically.
Yeah, and he's right.
So exactly all that Zelensky is offering is a continuation of the war, and this is not something that Trump is interested in. And so when you see, that's, I think, when we talked about this before, when he meets the Russians, Dmitriev, he knows how to talk to Trump. Dmitriev says, hey, we can do all these business deals. Look at all the money we can make and these projects and so on. And okay, that's great, business deals. What Zelensky's not offering business. Zelensky's saying, oh, you can give us some more money. Give me this, give me that. That just isn't. That's not. And of course, if you're the United States, it isn't in the United States' interest. I mean, first of all, it's very dangerous, and that came out in the security document. But it's also a drain. It's drain. It's just you're throwing good money after bad. And so that's and that's why he really does not like it. And that's what he said when, remember the other day. Hey, I said he doesn't have the cards. That meeting in February, he doesn't have the cards, and I thought he should have settled then. And he said that was last week. Anyway. The time is up. So thank you very much, everybody who had joined us. Thank you for all of your comments. Thank you for those who thought I'm being bullied. Yeah,
I just think maybe we should rename the podcast the Gaggle Bullies.
The Gaggle Bullies, the bully.
The bullying Gaggle. I don't know.
That's right. But it's normally the dogs who say, "Yeah, we're being bullied."
We're getting bullied.
We're getting bullied. Yeah. So, anyway, thank you so much. Thank you for all of your comments and questions. Thank you for whoever put in anything into the tip jar. That might keep the dogs, cheerful for a little while, not for very long. We will be back next Monday at the same time. And you please join me tomorrow for my solo live stream, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Look forward to seeing you then. Until then, all the best. Bye-bye.